Giyu is one of the most powerful Hashira in the series hands down, but he wasn't always like that. In fact, Giyu has a major flaw that almost disqualifies him as a Hashira entirely. So, in this video, we'll go over the evolution of Giyu Tomioka, his abilities, backstory, and also some secret facts you probably never heard of. Giyu grew up alongside his older sister Sutako. When he was still a child, his sister sacrificed herself to protect him from demons. But why exactly would Sutako get so close to the demon? There's no way she saw something so bloodthirsty and manic and didn't immediately retreat, right? Well, we'll talk about it soon enough. After Giyu barely managed to escape, he returns to the village and immediately tries to warn the villagers of the demon that attacked his sister out on the loose. But no one believes him, but it's hard to blame him too. Losing the last close family member you had would be devastating for anyone, much less a child. Did I mention that Giyu was only around 13 years old when all this happened? Most 13-year-olds can barely stop watching TikTok all day. And here's our boy seeing his sister killed by a demon. Later on, Giyu sent over to live with one of his relatives, a doctor. You see, the villagers thought he had a couple of screws loose upstairs. So while getting carted off to the loony bin, he breaks free and escapes into the mountains, where he almost dies. In his last moments, he's saved by Sakonji Urokodaki. Yeah, the same guy that mentored Tanjiro and basically laid his life on the line for Nezuko. This moment would go down in history as his very first contact with the Demon Slayer Corps. He would later go on to the Water Hashira instead of Urokodaki to bring along massive self-doubt and insecurity as baggage. He kept doubting his abilities and didn't even see himself as the true Water Hashira. Why, you ask? Well, it's because of his old friend Sabito. Giyu was 13 years old when he met Sabito while training under Sakonji, and they became good friends due to their similar past and age. However, there was one incident where Giyu expressed a desire to be dead, causing Sabito to strike him across the cheek and threaten to stop being his friend, reminding him of his sister's sacrifice and claiming it would have been for naught if he ended up dead. Together, they enter the final selection on Mount Fujikasane. Giyu was injured after a demon's attack and was saved by Sabito, who defeated nearly every demon on the mountain. However, after the week went by, it was revealed to Giyu that Sabito was the only one who died during their selection. As a result of this, Giyu started developing a doubt for the authenticity of his position after becoming the Water Hashira. He claimed that because he was just surviving in the final selection instead of fighting like Sabito did is the reason why he doesn't deserve his place among the Hashira. Moreover, he said that Sabito would be a much better Water Hashira than him. Later on, Tanjiro confronted him about that fact and said he felt a similar thing when Rengoku died. He said that he felt that Rengoku is the one who should have lived instead because he's much stronger than him, but eventually came to the realization that this is not what Rengoku wanted. Rengoku sacrificed himself in order for Tanjiro to keep growing and become an amazing swordsman. Giyu wasn't a weak swordsman by any means. He was actually one of the only swordsmen that created a brand new form, a feat that was done only by Zenitsu and Muichiro. And yes, I know there are more demon slayers that created their own form like Kokushibo, Mitsuri, and Obanai, but I would argue that creating a brand new form inside an existing breathing style is harder than creating a new breathing style completely due to the restrictions of sticking to one form. The water breathing techniques must have been insanely hard for Miyu to learn, especially as a scared and confused kid. Water breathing is one of the 5 main breathing techniques used by the demon slayers, derived from sun breathing. And as the name implies, water breathing trains the user to mimic the flow of water in their movements, techniques, and abilities. A user imagines themselves cutting with their blade, moving along with the flow of rushing water. It's kind of like a deadly dance of the sword. Just like the other breathing techniques, water breathing was invented by a student of Yorichi who attempted to learn sun breathing, but absolutely sucked at it. As Yorichi said himself, the Hashira used breaths on top of their already known techniques. So instead of learning sun breathing, they trained themselves to use the technique in a way that matched their weaknesses and strengths. This inferior style eventually became water breathing. It also happens to be the most used breathing technique among demon slayers because it's the easiest to learn. Water breathing itself was used by other demon slayers to cultivate new breathing techniques, specifically flower breathing, serpent breathing, and insect breathing. Although, now that I say that out loud, how the heck do you get flower, serpent, and insect from water? The breathing style has a total of 10 forms. Let's look at each of them carefully, because trust me, they're all insanely cool. After that, we'll look at the super special technique developed by Giyu himself. But this is not all. When we're done with the water-breathing forms, we'll discuss the entire history of Giyu, so you want to stick around. The first form has the user performing a single horizontal slash aiming to decapitate their target. When the user slashes the air, it visually shows how the blade follows the form of water. The second form has the user leaping into a somersault and unleashing a powerful vertical slash. Or as improvised by Tanjiro, it can also be a horizontal side somersault, which honestly is the coolest thing ever. But the crash, if you fail, would be epically brutal. The third form is more of a dance, and has the user moving their entire body along with the flow of water instead of just their blade. This leads into a beautiful, deadly motion that has the user dancing in a flowing pattern, slicing everything in its path. The fourth form is much the same as the third with a different flow, involving the user following the flow of water to decapitate the opponent. With the sixth form, the user changes the grip on their blade and decapitates the opponent in a single flowing strike that causes little to no pain. It's meant to be a sword strike of kindness used when the enemy willingly surrenders and no longer wishes to fight. It has an alternate form which combines the footwork from third form and the twisting movements of sixth form to perform an attack around the user that conjures a twisting, swirling, vicious flow of water to redirect projectiles from multiple angles. The seventh and eighth forms go back to the roots of the first and involve fast, powerful slashes in certain directions to bring about the most damage possible. Finally, the ninth and 10th forms involve a flowing dance form of movement, just like the third, which increases the user's strength and agility, allowing them to fight with greater freedom of movement. An interesting fact about the water breathing style would be that people that use it have their blades change color to a light blue shade to reflect their use of that style. The same thing happens with other styles, as it reflects the style a Demon Slayer prefers. Now onto Giyu's specially developed move, water breathing 11th form, Dead Calm. If the name wasn't epic enough, the move itself has the user entering a state of stillness and pure tranquility, and proceed to deflect any incoming attacks with imperceptible speed with their blade. It's kinda like Ultra Instinct but with swords, which is way cooler if you ask me. Either way, that's his powers explained, but we still don't know the full story of Giyu Tomioka, so let's get back to the tale. And if you're curious, maybe we'll even learn a few small things about him that you had no idea about. After Giyu became a Hashira, he inevitably meets Tanjiro, but the events of his past lead to Giyu developing an inferiority complex, a serious sense of survivor's guilt, and doubting his abilities as a Demon Slayer. So maybe the villagers' fears of him being a few nuts away from a full cog were a lot more on point than we realize. Just saying. Regardless, he goes on with his duties as a Demon Slayer, rising through the ranks and eventually taking over from Urokodaki as the Water Hashira. One day while out slaying demons, he gets a call of an attack in the mountains and rushes over to investigate and help. When he gets there, he finds a boy being attacked by a demon and charges into action, but to his surprise, the boy turns around and tries to protect the demon. He asks the boy why he's protecting a demon, and he replies that the demon is actually his sister. Giyu isn't moved by the statement and takes Nezuko, preparing to end her misery, but the boy continues to fight for his sister down to his last breath, even preparing to sacrifice himself for her. In the end, after a fight between the Hashira and the siblings, which is entirely one-sided, Giyu sees hope in the demon girl and spares her. He knocks her out peacefully and gives the boy advice to go meet his mentor, Urokodaki. He also writes a note to Urokodaki appealing for him to take care of the two and train the boy. Looking back at the tragedy with his sister, we can see exactly why Giyu decided to spare the demon and her brother. His own sister once had faith in demons and believed that there were some who would cause no harm. And even though that didn't work out very well for her in the end, her compassion still carried on to her brother, despite the guilt and despair that he lived with. Giyu once lamented on the thought that if he had been there just half a day earlier, Tanjiro and Nezuko's family might have been saved from that brutal attack. He resents the thought that his inadequacy once again led to the loss of life, and that's why he chooses to mentor Tanjiro and protect Nezuko. In a way, he feels responsible for their fates. He continues on with his Demon Slayer tasks until 2 years later. While responding to a distress call of a demon attack, he runs into the two again, and is impressed by the progress they've made over the years, and kill Rui pretty easily with his 11th form, shocking Tanjiro in the process. He then saves them again from an attack from Shinobu, giving Tanjiro a chance to escape with his sister while he calms her down. As Shinobu and Giyu tussle in a rather suspicious position, a crow arrives and it delivers a message that Tanjiro and Nezuko should be captured and brought into custody. Giyu brings them back and attends the Hashira meeting, still sour by Shinobu telling him that he was hated by the others. He watches the meeting from afar as Tanjiro and Nezuko stand on trial before all the other Hashira. There, Kaguya Ubuyashiki, the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, reveals that Nezuko has his blessing. Then he reads out a letter from Urokodaki that reveals a promise that Tanjiro, Urokodaki, and Giyu himself will commit seppuku if Nezuko is ever caught harming or eating a human. For the normies out there, seppuku is an honorable form of Japanese self-death. It's usually done willingly when someone has committed a great offense. What this means is that Giyu as well as his master Urokodaki have pledged their lives to save Nezuko's. Giyu is definitely a kind and compassionate person. He has his flaws, of course, but at the end of the day, he'll stand behind what he believes in and his own form of justice, although there's still things that hold him back. For instance, during the Hashira training arc, when the Hashira come together to train the Hashira that have received their Demon Slayer marks, Giyu leaves immediately, stating that he was different from the other Hashira. Kaguya decides to send Tanjiro over to confront Giyu and convince him to train with the others. Tanjiro visits Giyu and tries to talk him into it, much to the Hashira's annoyance. Tanjiro doesn't understand what's making him so angry. So Giyu decides to explain that technically, he didn't pass the final selection exam. In fact, during the exam, he didn't kill a single demon. That's Giyu's single biggest flaw. He doesn't believe in himself or his powers, and that cost him all the potential he has as a Hashira. Yet the man who fought every demon on the mountain died to save him. Tanjiro sympathizes since he's just experienced the same thing with Rengoku, the Flame Hashira's demise, to save him. But Tanjiro asks if his friend would be happy seeing him bury himself away and waste his sacrifice. This shocks the Hashira and reminds him of the lesson Sabato had told him about his sister, without the mega slap this time, of course. Giyu decides to stop being stubborn and agrees to go train with the other Hashira. With the training arc and the boost to his confidence, Piyu is the strongest he's ever been. But he can still get even stronger. How, you ask? Well, during an all-out attack on the demons to draw out Muzan, Giyu ends up coming face to face with a demon that killed one of his own. Following Oyokata's death, Giyu is seen with the other Hashira attacking Muzan Kibutsuji. He eventually enters Nakime's Infinity Castle alongside Tanjiro. The two defeat numerous demons, all of which are on par with the title and power of Lower Kizuki. The two are then soon ambushed by Akaza. Giyu watches as Tanjiro goes up against Akaza on his own for a short moment, amazed by his growth and pronouncing his skills as one equal to a Hashira. After Tanjiro manages to dodge Akaza's attack, Giyu uses third form Flowing Dance. Akaza immediately recognizes Giyu as the Water Hashira and states that it's been 50 years since he ran into someone this good. Akaza then uses Destructive Death, Disorder, to attack Giyu, but Giyu easily counters this with his 11th form, Dead Calm. Akaza then praises Giyu's 11th form, as he's never seen the previous Water Hashira use an 11th form. Tanjiro then attempts to land a hit on Akaza with Hinokami Kagura, Raging Sun, but Akaza evades this attack. He then appears behind Tanjiro and aims for his neck, but his attack fails when Giyu slices his arm off using second form Water Wheel. As the fight proceeds, Akaza praises Giyu's elegant swordsmanship while they fight. He then asks for Giyu's name, and Giyu states that he doesn't like to talk. Realizing that, Akaza sends Giyu flying with a hard kick to the gut, but that isn't enough to put Giyu down. He returns to fight Akaza again, this time sporting a newly formed Demon Slayer mark. That takes Giyu's power to a whole new level. His speed and strength increase exponentially, and he unlocks a whole new level of strength. Even though that's not enough to take down Akaza in that moment, Giyu is the strongest he's ever been. This definitely makes Giyu one of the strongest Hashira in the series by that point. Giyu and Tanjiro managed to kill Akaza after Tanjiro unlocked the see-through world and the selfless state, and after Tanjiro wakes up, Giyu tells him that the fight is far from over, because their next opponent is the king of demons himself, Muzan Kibutsuji. Giyu and Tanjiro manage to meet Muzan, and after some exchange of words between the two, an all-out assault starts, and the final battle begins. Eventually, Muzan kills Nakime because he was afraid that Yushiro will use her power in order to give the Demon Slayers a big advantage in the fight, causing the entire Infinity Castle to crash down on itself. Massive amounts of debris and wreckage are in the area as the Infinity Castle crashes into the surface. With everyone now in the city, the battle is for a moment suspended. The Hashira and Tanjiro appear to be unharmed from the crash and collision. Muzan at first is nowhere to be seen, but soon finds himself present as he destroys and launches the rubble that he was buried under. The three Hashira engage Muzan as he releases multiple attacks toward them. They swiftly dodge and strike back with their individual forms. However, Muzan's regeneration is leagues above other demons. Their attacks do nothing, as he regenerates while they're still in the motion of cutting him. With all three of the Hashira being close, Muzan attempts to kill him, but is stopped by multiple lower-ranked demon slayers who use their bodies as shields for the Hashira. This leads to nearly all of their deaths, along with the Hashira's temporary safety. Muzan, while dealing with the slayers, brings their attention to Tanjiro, who to Giyu's horror has fallen. The Hashira and Muzan engage in combat once more, with Giyu's priority being to get a blade that isn't broken. The Hashira are hit numerous times, and the poison of Muzan's blood spreads, and Kanroji becomes unable to dodge Muzan's next attack. Nearly killed and if not fatally injured, the Love Hashira is saved by Guillaume. Sanemi joins the battle as well, and the 5 Hashira continue fighting against the Demon King. Muzan's speed increasing against the Hashira as he puts more pressure on him. Eventually, Mitsuri is harmed by an unknown suction technique from Muzan. Giyu, Guillaume, and Sanemi all defend Obanai as he helps Mitsuri. The three continue to stall Muzan on their own before Obanai soon joins them. Shmiyu loses his blade in the constant battle from his weakened grip. He's defended by Guillaume and Obanai and ordered by Sanemi to get himself together. Giyu finds a non-broken blade to use and pushes himself, using third form Flowing Dance. They all, however, feel the poison's effect on him, and when they're on the verge of collapsing, a cat miraculously appears, carrying doses of cures to Muzan's poison. The Hashira are struck by each dose, which cures them out of the poison and allows them to regain a portion of their strength. Muzan, out of rage and anger against Tamayo, releases more suction attacks toward the Hashira. They barely avoid them. Obanai soon after, in an attempt to dye his blade bright red, almost loses consciousness and becomes unable to move. Giyu attempts to save Obanai from Muzan's attack, but it's too late. However, to everyone's surprise, Obanai is unharmed in the air, and Muzan is attacked multiple times by invisible fighters. These invisible slayers that join the battle are revealed to be Kanao, Inosuke, and Zenitsu. Once Muzan destroys the tags that were on their persons, which were made by Yushiro using his blood demon art. With the aid of more slayers and Yushiro's demon art, the slayers push themselves to strike Muzan numerous times. Eventually, Giyu and Sanemi are able to clash blades and dye them both red. Soon afterwards, Muzan releases a blitzing quick attack, disabling and knocking away all of the slayers except Kanao. This attack causes Giyu to lose his left arm. Giyu and most of the others are knocked out for the majority of the rest of the battle. Tanjiro, being cured by Yushiro, awakens and starts to engage Muzan, utilizing the final form of Sun. He's soon joined by Obanai as the two start to assist each other. Tanjiro's sun breathing and Obanai's bright red Nichiren blade cause devastating damage on the ever-weakening Muzan. The two drive him to near death before Muzan releases an attack that causes Tanjiro to have seizure-like effects. Inosuke and Zenitsu stop Muzan from escaping and calm Tanjiro enough for him to release himself from the effects of Muzan's attack. While this is happening, the other Hashira start to get up and move toward Muzan despite their devastating injuries. Zenitsu and Inosuke continue to engage Muzan before being quickly joined by Tanjiro. The once intense high speed becomes a slow battle of sheer endurance. The trio fight together before Inosuke and Zenitsu reach their limits and are knocked out of the battle. Tanjiro pins Muzan to a wall, attempting to hold him down for as long as he can. Mitsuri arrives and rips Muzan's arm off before he can release any attacks against Tanjiro. Sanemi arrives, slashing off Muzan's other arm, while Obanai stops Tanjiro from being eaten. Muzan releases another attack, launching both Sanemi and Obanai away, Tanjiro still holding, losing his right arm in the attack. Giyu arrives, gripping Tanjiro's blade and turning it red, inflicting more damage on Muzan. The sunlight starts to beam on Muzan, the latter becoming more dire about the situation. Muzan creates an armor of flesh in the appearance of a baby to slow his body from completely burning in the chance to escape. Tanjiro was absorbed into his body as he expanded. The massive flesh baby crawled around trying to get into shade while the Demon Slayer Corps tried to slow it down. Cars are driven and rammed into Muzan before he crushes the cars and continues. The Demon Slayers slow and block Muzan off from shade with another bus-like vehicle. Muzan starts crushing and climbing the vehicle as well, nearly killing multiple Demon Slayers. However, is cut down by Sanemi using 9th form, Itadin Typhoon. Muzan suffers more flesh loss, but still goes on, managing to get on top of the bus. In panic, the Demon Slayers question what to do. Guillaume and multiple other Kakashi supporters manage to pull Muzan back onto his back using the chain from Guillaume's weapon. Muzan continues to burn, but attempts to start digging into the ground, going underground to survive. Giyu, Sanemi, and Obanai attempt to stop him, utilizing 10th form Constant Flux, 5th form Winter Gale, and 4th form Twin Snakeheads. Muzan continues digging down, as hope with him dying as the sun dwindles. But Tanjiro from inside releases a slash with what little energy he's capable of, causing Muzan to jolt upward and burn to ashes. The Demon Slayers pause in anticipation before cheering and crying as they finally killed Muzan. As everyone goes to tend to the wounded and help with recovery, Giyu is frantically looking for Tanjiro. Multiple Kakashi try to tell him to not move and block him from seeing Tanjiro, but Giyu catches a glimpse of Tanjiro. Giyu is told that Tanjiro doesn't have a pulse and isn't breathing. He's died. Giyu apologizes to Tanjiro for failing to protect him, asking for forgiveness. Tanjiro's eyes jolted open, blankly staring ahead of him. His missing arm suddenly regenerates, causing Giyu to recognize what's happened. Giyu saves a Kakashi nearby from being killed by Tanjiro. Giyu calls to the other Kakashi nearby Tanjiro to get away from him. However, their slow reaction nearly causes Tanjiro to kill them. Due to the sunlight, however, he's interrupted and starts to burn. Giyu calls out to everyone to get weapons, proclaiming Tanjiro has turned into a demon. Tanjiro attempts to get in the shade, however, is pinned down by Giyu. Giyu pleads for Tanjiro to stay as himself and die as Tanjiro. However, Tanjiro stops burning, becoming immune to sunlight similar to Nezuko. Tanjiro manages to strike Giyu in the jaw before Inosuke arrives. Inosuke attempts to behead Tanjiro, however, cannot bring himself to do it. Nezuko, turned into a human, arrives on the battlefield, hugging Tanjiro before he can get the chance to kill Inosuke. Tanjiro bites her as she talks and nearly kills Nezuko, but Zenitsu stops him now. Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Nezuko attempt to hold him down and stop him. However, Tanjiro pushes them all back, including Giyu. Nezuko barely holds on to him as Tanjiro grows multiple tendrils. He launches several of them towards Zenitsu. Giyu, using 4th form Striking Tide, stops the attack, but also notes that they have no way to kill Tanjiro. Giyu continues to block the attacks and tendrils from Tanjiro, hoping that Tanjiro can regain himself. Kanao, utilizing the final form of flower breathing, Equinoctial Vermilion Eye, manages to inject Tanjiro with a medicine capable of turning demons back into humans. Tanjiro stops attacking as he undergoes the reverse demon transformation, becoming human again. The battle is truly over now. Giyu had a distant relationship with most of the Hashira. I say most because there was one he had a special bond with. Before her, however, he seemed to either be just on mildly friendly terms with most and completely distant with the rest. Sanemi especially seemed to have a bit of a rivalry with him, often antagonizing him and not being subtle about his dislike of Giyu. During the Hashira training arc, Sanemi goes and directly challenges Giyu to a spar that grows so intense their training swords break, and Tanjiro rushes in to stop him, wrongly assuming that they were fighting seriously. Obanai also seemed to outright hate him for reasons that were never really revealed. When Tanjiro and Nezuko were put on trial, as Sanemi held out his blood to Nezuko to demonstrate that she could not resist human flesh, Giyu held back Obanai from stopping Tanjiro, who was trying to save his sister. During their interaction, Obanai seems to have an obvious disgust towards Giyu. The other Hashira have similar relationships with him, only holding him as an ally and part of the group with only minor interactions between them. All except Shinobu, who seemed to take special interest in him. They talked often, and other Hashira noticed that they seemed to enjoy each other's company. Despite their vastly different relationships with each other, all the Hashira see Giyu as their ally and will not hesitate to protect or fight alongside him when the time comes. Which means that despite his insecurities, the others see him as a Hashira. Giyu definitely grows into an amazing and powerful demon slayer, earning respect and power throughout the series. On top of all that, he's one of Tanjiro's biggest supporters and mentors. Without him, the story of Demon Slayer would have been very different. If you love this Hashira's history, then you'll adore this video we have about all the Hashira, their powers, and their relationships to each other. So if you want to learn more about the Hashira, click the video that pops up on your screen right now. Go on, click it. You won't regret it.